Hey there friends, what's up? Kevin here from the MSOTD Rocks YouTube channel, and today I'm reviewing the second volume of an album that came out earlier in 2020 from one of my favorite bands. This is my review of New Empire Volume 2 by Hollywood Undead. Before we get started, please follow MSOTD Rocks on places like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. On those platforms, you will get a Song of the Day feature every single day, which is a 30-second clip from a song from one of the bigger bands in the scene today or from the emerging upcoming bands in rock and metal today to expand your knowledge and your likeness of the genre and genres and subgenres. We also will announce anytime anything comes out on those platforms here on YouTube, on the podcast, whatever it might be. And we also pose a lot of different questions for you guys to answer. On Instagram, though, we do have our IGTV video series, which is a behind-the-scenes look at what's going on here. It comes out every single Tuesday night and every single Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central. You can join our Instagram live streams for about an hour. Come talk to us, have a great time. Nothing is held back. Please also subscribe to this YouTube channel because not only are you getting these album reviews, you're also going to get the Kevin Figures Out series where I try and figure out if I like bands or not that I'm not that well versed in. You also get our top 10 list, our specialty about emerging bands in the scene today, and of course, coming up at the end of 2020, the year-end awards. So there's always a lot of controversy around that. So I'd love to know what you guys think. So please subscribe to stay informed. And this is also where the Chord Progression podcast lives. It is our very own podcast. We are interviewing all the emerging bands in the scene today. We even have a specific video coming out for the 2020 year-end awards, which takes a look at the best albums from these emerging bands. Note, every single one of those bands has been on the podcast at some point, so you get an in-depth look at these bands before they really make it big and really get into the mainstream. You can watch all those episodes here on YouTube, or you can listen on Spotify, Podcast, Google Play, and iHeart Radio. Link description below for everything, so like, share, subscribe, whatever it might be. Now let's get on to it. A little bit of background before going in. Because this is Volume 2, Volume 1 came out on February 14th, 2020, and taking a look at what critics had said about it, they were rather positive on it, giving about an average 7 out of 10, with Johnny 3 Tier saying this was like a reimagining of Hollywood Undead. I did my own review on it, and I gave it a 7 out of 10 as well. While there are songs like some of the singles especially killing it that I really didn't care for, there were songs like Heart of a Champion and Enemy, which had that energy, that drive, that fast pace, that cocky kind of energy that Hollywood Undead really had back then, but also a little bit more updated for today. So it really did have a good amount of that. For that time, they were touring overseas in Europe with Papa Roach and Ice 9 Kills. However, before that tour was over, COVID hit and they had to completely scrap that, along with the US tour they had planned with Bad Wolves, Fire from the Gods, and From Ash 2 that I was supposed to go to. Damn you, COVID. So what had Hollywood Undead been up to during the pandemic? Well, they've been working on New Empire Volume 2, which came out on December 4th, 2020. There are 10 songs on this track, 9 new ones, and 1 remake and remix of a song from New Empire Volume 1. So you can get features on this album from Hyro the Hero, Tech 9, Kill Station, Spencer Charners from Ice 9 Kills, and Jacoby Shax from Papa Roach. Enough with the background on this, let's get into this album, baby. Starting with the composition, construction, instrumentation on New Empire Volume 2, what I was hoping for was a continuation of what they did with Volume 1, where they reimagined Hollywood Undead, but they brought back some of that more cocky, more in-your-face energy that they had on songs like California Dreamin' from 5, like Day of the Dead, Live Forever, and a lot of the tracks that they had earlier on. And they did bring that back in Volume 1 with stuff like Heart of a Champion, Enemy, some more of a mix of the softer stuff with some more of the harder, cockier stuff as well, like Upside Down. And they did have some softer stuff in there as well that was rather prevalent on their Psalms EP and on 5. And I was hoping I'd get a little bit more of the mix like we did in Volume 1, but on Volume 2, we got a lot more of a softer, more concentrated sound from Hollywood Undead from their instrumentation. So what Hollywood Undead did on this album was they focused on some softer sounds, they focused on some more concentrated sounds, and they really took a lot of that, what I would say, that cocky, just in-your-face attitude, energy out of there. They really brought in some more of the softer stuff that you saw on Notes from the Underground, which I thought worked out really well on that album, and also stuff from 5, which I thought on the softer songs on that one really didn't work out. Did we get a little bit of that cocky energy in there though? Yeah, take a look at the verses on Ghost Out. We did really get that in there with that more in-your-face, I got this kind of energy. But as you go through the rest of it, you really don't get any of that. You really don't get any feel like they're reimagining and re-bringing out that kind of same energy and feel they had on songs like Undead, anything off of American Tragedy and stuff like Day of the Dead and even like Heart of a Champion to the first version and Enemy. Taking a couple songs that show this, let's go with Gonna Be Okay, where the verses do have a little bit more of that construction, faster pace feel, so they bring up more of that cocky energy and feel to the song, which I really did like. Then you go to the chorus and it's a lot softer in terms, it's still concentrated, it still has that pace there, but it's softer, it's more drawn back at the same point as well. And it really does fit in well with the meaning of the song, but that mix between a little bit more of that cockier energy in the verses versus a smoother chorus, the mix really does not work out well on this one, so the composition on this one kind of falls short. Idol was another one because what I thought they did on this one was they really followed a lot of the formula that EDM and dubstep really go with on their music, and their vocals really tried to match exactly what they were doing there. However, when you got to some of the breakdowns and like the big, here's the one the bass drops kind of feel, the vocals could have easily brought up a lot more power in there, and they just really failed to do so. This was a missed opportunity in terms of overall construction on this one, in terms of how it was gonna pop. So this one really fell flat on me. It was just not the right move, for my opinion. And then there's Unholy, where they really constructed the song with more of a melodic feel to really give that softer, more concentrated feel, like stuff on B, like Ghost Beach would have had. However, the biggest problem was if you take a listen to the song, it feels like that energy should be there. It feels like that upfront, in-your-face, cocky kind of feel like Enemy had from Volume 1 really should have been here. So that's something I was disappointed in, though. Overall, though, I mean, they did try a lot of different things on this one to really try and recreate some of that softer success they had on Notes of the Underground, and really didn't do that well with on 5. However, it just really came off sometimes as bland, as kind of mixed up, and just the total removal of that real cocky energy that they had, and they really brought back a little bit more on Volume 1, really showed a lack of depth on this one for the composition style on my point. So I was not the biggest fan of the composition, construction, instrumentation. When it comes to the remake of Heart of a Champion, though, I will get to that because that's more vocal oriented. Now it's time to go to the vocals on this one, and because each member has a different style of vocal, I'm going to take a look at some of the members and then some of the features as well. Starting with Johnny 3 Tears, though, on this album, he really stuck to two styles. He stuck to more of this softer, calmer style, and also his more brash, in-your-face rapping style. And while I did like the fact that he probably went more with that brash or in-your-face kind of style, it was really a problem with how the construction of the instrumentation, the composition of the songs really built out, because they really didn't allow that to be maximized at that point. So the mix here was up. Take a look at Idol, for example, with that angrier dubstep sound. You really could have brought in this full-on powerful feel, and it just did not hit well coming with a breakdown right after it with an EDM style or dubstep style kind of, when you could have actually had a lot more power and seen a lot more power following those vocals when you had Danny coming back after it, especially on something like New Empire Volume 1. Now we go to Charlie Scene, and Charlie's usually one of my favorite vocalists in terms of the Hollywood Undead group, but this one was probably my least favorite Charlie Scene outing from the band. And the reason is because his vocal sense really had a lot of that cockiness and that energy removed from it. It was a lot more melodic, a lot more simplistic, a lot more flowing. And this really did take out a lot of that energy that I know that Hollywood Undead has, a lot of energy that Charlie Scene has, and I really didn't feel it. Take a look at a song like Unholy, where he went super melodic with the vocals, and it was really more of like pop construction feel to it, which really took a lot of the energy, a lot of that vigor that Charlie Scene has in his vocals. This was not the same guy that really sang Everywhere I Go, Bitches Always Know. I mean, this is something a little bit different here. I can see that they tried something completely new, but just taking that cocky energy out of there really wasn't the best one. Now it's time to go to Danny, and when it comes to Danny, I was surprised on this one, because when I hear Danny's voice, and I hear him on stuff like Hear Me Now, Day of the Dead, California Dreamin', Enemy, Heart of a Champion, when he comes in with those choruses and more like cleaner, higher pitch, but high energy style, it really works well with a lot of the rest of the raps that the guys do on this. However, this Volume 2 really didn't have a lot of that. It really failed to capture that moment, because he wants more melodic, more softer side. Take a look at Gonna Be Okay, where the pre-chorus really kind of has this certain feel to it that's a little more drawn back, drawn out, and then he comes in with these rather smooth, just not that energy or higher pitch driven vocal style, and it takes a lot out of there because this is the crescendo moment here, and not having Danny do that just really takes a lot back from it. I just really struggled to get into some of this stuff, and that was another big part of it. Now let's go to J-Dog. In Volume 1, I was really happy with what J-Dog did, and I wanted to get more from J-Dog on Volume 2, and that was a wish I was actually granted, and it was done really well. When I look at J-Dog and listen to him, he brought more of that brashness that Charlie C has, more of that roughness and that flow that Johnny Features, but much more of the flow, much more of the sound of Funny Man. And mix it all together, it really created more dynamic sense. Every time J-Dog was in a track, he really brought out this track in more of a dynamic way. Take a look at Monster when he's on the third verse, because he just comes in and that mix makes you really feel like the monster is coming out and overtaking you, and it is incredible with how it's done. J-Dog was a huge plus on this album. Now let's go to Funny Man. Funny Man's only featured on one song on this album. I know he wrote a bunch of these, but he's only featured on one of them, and that was something I was not hoping for, because in Volume 1, every time Funny Man came on, like J-Dog, it was done so well, and I wanted to get more of that. This one, it was much less of it, much more Johnny Features and Charlie, but what you gonna do on this one? That flow that Funny Man has really could have amped up the diversity, really could have amped up some of that energy that some of these songs would have had, but, you know, it just wasn't there this time, so what are you really gonna do about it? When it comes to the features, the success was all over the board. In the song Coming Through Your Stereo with Hyra the Hero, his verse was in the first verse of the track, and his rapping style was a lot more faster paced and a lot more energetic than the rest of the band up to this point. And while I thought it was fine, it just really didn't match up with what the rest of the band was doing at that point, so I really wasn't the biggest fan of it. However, I do respect the fact that it just would have worked out well had Hollywood Undead reconstructed some of their stuff. Now it's time to go to Heart of a Champion, the remake on this one, because I have some things to say about this. It features both Spencer Charnas from Ice Nine Kills and Jacoby Shax from Papa Roach. What they did with Spencer, though, I was not a fan of, and the reason is because they confined Spencer just to the chorus in the first part of the song, and the second time they bring in the chorus. It was just his vocals, very simplistic, and why I didn't like that is because I've known what Spencer can do. His vocal range is much more expansive, and I would love to have seen how they could have played that off with Danny's vocals on that chorus as well, instead of just isolating Spencer to that. That dynamic really could have worked out well, and they really kind of blew it on that one in my aspect. When it comes to Jacoby Shaddix on Heart of the Champion, though, it was much better with how they used him. When they went with his rap style, it was faster paced for the first half, and then it was really well done with a slower down style that matched up with what Charlie C and Johnny Features had done in their verse, but that faster paced style really brought in a lot more of that energy that was missing in the third verse of the original. But when you get to the chorus at the end, man, this is what they should have done with Spencer, because you had Danny being the primary vocalist, but then backing up was Jacoby bringing in a more powerful sound to accent it, and it went perfect. I love the inclusion on this, but I wish they would have done the same thing with Spencer as well. Overall, though, with the vocal performance on New Empire Volume 2, it was all over the place. I still wish we'd have gotten more Funny Man. I like that we got more J-Dog, though. The features were all over the place in terms of good and bad quality, in my opinion. And, man, I want more Funny Man. Looking at the themes and the styles of this album, they really remind me of something like Hollywood Undead's going back to their older stuff and really trying to reference it here, which I thought was a cool move. Take a look at a song like Medicare. We're talking about how people are trying to break out of these certain things and break out of this addiction, but it's so hard to do that. And it kind of reflects on what they did with Medicine back on Notes of the Underground. Take a look at a song like Monsters, where it talks about how we all have these demons deep down inside us, and we're trying to hide them under our beds and trying not to let them overtake us and let a living nightmare happen. But eventually it will if we just keep ignoring them. Like Nightmare in Volume 1, it's just going to bring that out to the forefront. Take a look at a song like Worth It, where you're telling people that you love. It's just like, you know, I'm worth it. I've got this. If you believe in me, I'm really worth it. Please trust me on this. It's the exact opposite of what they did with Black Dahlia in Swan Songs. And then take a look at a song like Idol, where it's talking about how people today are really looking and idolizing the wrong type of person. And if they want to get further in life and taking inspiration, they should take personal accountability for themselves. Something like Enemy talked about, where you are really the one saying in your own way. So there's a lot of back and forth between these songs, so it was really interesting. But do they match up in terms of the song styles? And sometimes yes, sometimes no. There are sometimes with that softer style that I really do like it in terms of how they match up with the themes of the songs, because it gives you more of this reflective feel, more of this looking back in a way feel. And it really does work out well to bring out some of these larger items. However, sometimes with some of these themes, especially a song like Idol that really needed that energy and cocky vigor without that EDM style track, that really could have popped, it just really didn't hit hard for me at all. So again, this is a mixed bag here. Alright, time for my overall rating on New Empire Volume 2 by Hollywood Undead, and that is... I'm going to give New Empire Volume 2 a 3.5 out of 10. So 3.5 out of 10. What I like about this album, one is Jacoby Shack's edition on Heart of a Champion. With his third verse being a lot quicker at the beginning and then matching the pace of Johnny Three Tears and Charlie in the second half, it brought out that cocky vigor that the song really needed to really make it have that real Hollywood Undead feel. And then accenting with Danny's vocals in the final chorus just made it sound so much more epic. It was a great move on their part. And one thing I liked about this album was the fact that we got more J-Dog on this album. I was asking for this after hearing him in New Empire Volume 1 just a little bit, and I really like what he does with his vocals when he comes in. Take a look at songs like We Are off of Notes from the Underground and the first verse with him and Funny Man in California Dreamin'. I really like what they do here because his vocal range, again, reminds me of a mix between Johnny Three Tears, Charlie Scene, and the flow of Funny Man, and it really works out well just to add more diversity to the sound. Take a look at his verse on Ghost Out, where you really get the feel that you're bringing more of that cocky energy back there with his flow and with his little bit more brasher style than something like Funny Man. It really did work out well to bring back that cocky energy feel. Then take a look at his verse on Monster, where his diversity in the vocals really let the instrumentation shine to really make you feel like they're the monsters that are under your bed, that you try and hide away from everybody, are taking you over and are showing you your true self in a way. And it really is something that's powerful. I do really like J-Dog on this album. I'm glad we got more of them. So what I dislike about New Empire Volume 2, one of the big things was the fact we only had Funny Man on one song, and that was Ghost Out. And the biggest problem I had with this was because I really liked Funny Man in New Empire Volume 1. His song Enemy on that, the flow on that was so well done with him and J-Dog. I wish we'd gotten so much more of that, but we did not get really anything. We got a lot less of it, and it really ended up going and not working out very well because it gave the songs a lot more of a similar flow than we could have had with a more diverse set with Funny Man in there. Speaking of lack of diversity in terms of vocals, that's another thing I really didn't like about the sound, because even with just Charlie and Johnny Three Tears being the primary vocals on this, they really stuck within a lot more of the same realms, where Charlie ended up being a lot more monotonous and just kind of keeping the same vocals. Really, a lot of that cocky energy was brought back to really help out with more of a melodic style of it. And that lack of energy really came out as a negative point on this album, because a lot of the songs started to sound bland and run together like they're trying to recapture what they had on Notes from the Underground, but really didn't do that very well because of the fact that they kind of had to maybe feel more like the middle of V. And then Johnny Three Tears as well, again, bringing out that brasher, more heavier rapping sound. I did like it, but I wish we got some heavier instrumentation to go along with it as well, because I thought that would really amped everything up. But the lack of diversity kind of kept some of these songs feeling monotonous in a way. Speaking of monotony, going back to that more melodic sound, that more slower style, more concentrated style, I really wasn't a big fan of that, because they had a very consistent feel of this throughout the whole album, except when you got to the Heart of a Champion remake. And it just really didn't stand out for me, in my opinion, because I'm not the biggest fan of when Hollywood Undead does that ever since Notes from the Underground came out, because when they did on there, I thought they did it really well. There's a lot of substance behind it. Now the substance is there in terms of the meanings and the emotions, but it's just not brought out nearly well enough. And the fact that we lost a lot of that cocky energy that we had on New Empire Volume 1, I just couldn't understand that, because now we're not getting that diverse mix here. And it just really kind of came off as a little bit short, in my opinion. So it was something that I'm going to be thinking, when it comes to Hollywood Undead, am I going to be listening to this album a lot? Probably not. So now my overall opinion on New Empire Volume 2. I was afraid that we were going to get something like this based off of not only what had happened with Volume 1, but again, I saw what happened on V with a lot more of that concentrated melodic feel to Hollywood Undead, and I was hoping that if they would do that, they would try and go exactly what they did with Notes from the Underground and recapture that quality in terms of a more melodic song. However, it really didn't work out on this one at all, because they didn't really capture fully the emotions transferring from the instrumentals to the vocals and how all that is processed together Plus, with having more of a Johnny Three-Tier and Charlie Scene show on this one, and having Charlie Scene's vocals being a lot more monotonous, it really did limit a lot of what the band was able to do in terms of telling some of these stories and really bringing out that cocky energy that is at their core. J-Dog, on the other hand, did a great job on this album, and I wish Funny Man would have been a lot more involved with the vocals on this one, but you get what you're going to get. With the features, I do think that some of them worked out well, some of them didn't work out well. The Heart of a Champion remake, man, that is a tale of hitting an opportunity and missing another one. Working incredibly well with what Jacoby Shax had, but missing the chance to really use Spencer Charles to his full form. Now, do I think Hollywood Undead can easily come back and bring back that cocky energy once again? Yeah, they did it on Volume 1 earlier this year. They can easily do it again. Maybe we're getting two sides of this whole entire album. There's two sides of the reimagined Hollywood Undead. For me personally, I like Volume 1 a lot more than I like Volume 2. If you like Volume 2 more than you like Volume 1, I really don't mind because everyone has different opinions. Me, I really could not connect with this one at all. That's going to be for me today, guys. Thank you for watching and listening. Please like, share, subscribe to this video, and make sure you are prepared for the year-end awards because this might end up somewhere. We'll see. This is Kevin from the MSOTD Rocks YouTube channel. You guys know I end with the hat flip. I had to catch that one. See ya!